Hi there, good evening, and welcome to the Business of Property. I'm your host, Cheryl Leon for Property Development Australia. I am also playing the role of an Eskimo today. It is absolutely freezing, hence the fluffy jacket. So I begin by acknowledging our traditional custodians of the land on which we meet and pay my respects to elders past and present. I extend that respect to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people here today. At the Business of Property, we interview superstar guests in the property development space that share their expertise, their deals, and their stories to help empower, build, and grow our community of property developers. So hello to Facebook Land, LinkedIn, YouTube, whoever is here today, please drop us a comment below. I love to see how who's here and how you're doing. Today's a little bit different because we have someone who is not specifically a property development person. However, Steve Hui is the founder of iFLYflat, and he specializes in Australian rewards points and how you can use your spending in your property business to be able to fly business class. And hence, I spoke to Steve quite a few weeks ago, and I said, this will be so good for our community of property developers who are spending a lot of money on their projects, and particularly those who are, potentially using cards or whichever to spend. We could really look at how they can possibly leverage the advantages of using points. However, before I bring Steve on board, I do have a disclaimer. None of this is financial advice in any way. It is just presenting to you what is available, but definitely speak to your financial advisor, your accountant, as to how this applies to you and whether it's even suitable at all. So without further ado, may I invite Steve to the Business of Property dance floor to share with us
Hello,
how to
hi
get these
Cheryl.
points and fly business class. Hello, Steve. Great to have you here.
Pleasure to be here. So I'm on board Emirates A380, their business class bar right now.
Amazing. I can see everyone is very excited to be there. They're sort of frozen, so excited. But that doesn't look anything like the economy that I generally sit in. That looks amazing. So, like you said, I think once you fly first class, you can't go back. Is that right?
You can't go back, and you never go back, because once
Yeah.
you are able to earn screens of points, you never have to fly economy again.
I think that, and this is why the timing is so ideal, Steve. As we all know, borders have opened. Everyone is itching to fly everywhere, and the truth is, I mean, a lot of people are looking to take longer trips to Europe and to the US and all of that, which we know, in economy, um, it's rather cramped for long
It's
trips.
a challenge.
And the idea of flying business class is so out of sort of reach for most people, but what we're actually talking about is that it's possible to be able to utilize points to fly business class. Tell us
Yep.
a little bit about how this has all come about.
Yeah. So like using points to fly. So basically, what you're doing, you're paying for your flight with your points.
Mhm.
And using points to do it in a like a with a plan is basically like shortcutting the whole process. Now, as you said before, business class is expensive, and the traditional way is to earn your money, pay your tax, and what you got left, you buy a ticket in business class, and that could be $8,000 or $10,000.
Mhm.
What I'm doing is I'm shortcutting the process and utilizing points to pay for your ticket. And the way
Mm.
to do that is that, because when you're running a business and you've got all these, or even you've got lots of expenses to pay, with the right credit card, you earn these points, but at really, really low cost, zero cost or low cost. And you get
Mm.
those points, and those points get you your ticket. So basically, it costs like easily less than half price to fly business
Yeah.
class, even
So
sometimes a quarter of the price.
yeah, I know that we ran through some numbers as well, and it was like, for a flight that would normally cost you 10,000 a ticket, it was
Yeah,
less. It was about $2,000 or whichever, which is, fees and all that, which you would normally pay for a
yeah.
full economy seat anyhow.
That, that's right. Yeah. So in some cases, I guess depending on everyone's specific circumstances, you can
Yeah,
fly business class return for either less than half the price of economy, or
yeah,
around the price of economy, or a little bit more than economy. So depending where everyone sits. So
yeah.
that's the overall. It's super cheap.
That's incredible. So, like, where did we, how can we figure out what we can spend on, and how, whether it works for us or not? Because obviously you got to spend money
Yeah.
to accumulate those points. And how do you work out the part where it's worth it, I guess?
Yeah, yeah. So everyone's got on their in their mind is, because everyone's got bills to pay, that they ask themselves, are the transaction fees worth it? Am I going to be ahead if I
Mm,
use my credit card, pay these fees to get points, and is it worth it? And I think what it is, well, so my background is accounting, so
mm,
I'm very comfortable with spreadsheets. And once you put all the numbers in the spreadsheet, you can see where the value sits. And basically, it's how I put it down in the process is a bit like, if you're going to say, for example, if someone spends $1 million paying bills, if they
mm,
just pay by EFT, they'll incur no fees, but they also get no points. If you put $1 million through your credit card, for example, like an Amex card, you can get nearly 1.25 million Qantas points. It
mm,
might cost you $15,000 in fees, but that 1.25 million Qantas points can get you about 5 to 6 return business class flights. So you're basically getting 5 to 6 return business class flights for $15,000, which is very cheap once you do the
that's
sums.
incredible. Yeah, yeah. And why we mention with property businesses, because as developers, we all know we're constantly paying consultants. If you're doing renovations or whichever you're buying, you're spending quite a lot on materials as well.
Yep,
Obviously, it needs to be something that you can pay on a credit card.
yep.
But what point is it sort of worth it? Because there has I'm assuming there's a point where you've got to pay, you've got to be spending at least a minimum amount of something to make
That's
it
right.
all worthwhile to have enough of the points, I'm assuming.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And I think to answer that question, it comes down to understand how many points you need to fly somewhere. So I guess the general guide is a hunt. And let's talk about Qantas points, because everyone has Qantas points, but obviously when you fly Singapore and other airlines, the points change a little bit.
Mm,
In terms of the Qantas land, you can fly return business class to Singapore for about 130,000 points. You can fly to Los Angeles for just under 217,000, and you can
mm,
fly to Europe for about 300,000 points on average.
mm,
So that gives you a guide of how many points you need to fly where for business class return.
mhm.
And it's roughly $1 spent on a credit card will get you 1 point on an Amex, for example. So
Yeah,
if you for every $300,000 you spend, you pick up enough points to fly return business class to Europe. And then it all comes down to how many multiples of that do people do, and also
yeah,
how long it takes. Some people might spend $3 million a year. Some people might only spend $300,000 a year.
yes.
It just becomes a numbers game after that.
Yeah, sure. I mean, if you're, for a lot of projects, if you're spending 300,000, obviously not all of that is going to be something that you pay on credit card.
Yeah.
But looking at being able to leverage that and go, well, if it's 1 or 2 years and being able to afford a business class flight, I mean, that's quite a novelty, I think.
Well, that's right. Yeah, because every time you are able to pay a bill on your Amex card for a decent amount of fee, and I guess generally saying that don't pay more than 2%
Mm,
fee, because
mm,
anything above that, you still get some value, but you're not going to get super value. But obviously, the
yeah,
cheaper the better. And
yeah,
zero, you have like Bunnings, for example. You can pay go to Bunnings and with your Amex card, and they'll charge you 0% transaction fee. In that case, all those points are free. They cost zero.
Oh my goodness. All these renovators and tradies are going to be like Amex cards now.
Well, Amex is just one of the cards. Obviously, there's Visa and
Yeah,
MasterCard.
sure, exactly. And so I mean, are there some points better than others? And I went points because there's like, Virgin's got their points, Qantas,
Yes.
other, Singapore Air, Chris Flyers and things. Are there one that's the best, or are they sort of fairly all equal?
So every single, all the points are a little bit different. So no two points are equal to each other. So like depends what region you're going to. Like Qantas points, you can fly everywhere because Qantas is Australia's carrier. So therefore, all flights leave from Australia and they go around the world. But to fine tune that, for example, if you had Singapore points, you can fly to Europe on Singapore points for about 20% lower points than Qantas charges to fly on Qantas points. So that's where what we do with our clients is we ask them, where do you want to go frequently? And then we can sort of which frequent flyer points are best suited for that route. So like going to Europe, if you go to Europe every year or a couple of times a year, or that's where you want to go, then you really want to earn Singapore points because it costs you 20% lower points to fly. Just find a credit card that earns Singapore points. And that's how you fine tune that.
And so if you have someone who wants to travel everywhere, how do you work out, what to spend on and which points to get?
Yeah. Well, in that case, then there's the credit cards that, and I'm just taking an Amex example, you can earn these points into Amex and then you hold them in Amex. And when you're ready to use them, you can then transfer them to
distribute them. Okay.
Yeah, so you've got flexibility there. So therefore, you don't have to decide up front. So that's one flexible. Obviously, Visa, MasterCards also have those options where you're actually earning, say, like ANZ reward points or NAB reward points or St. George Amplify points. Each one is a little bit different. And ultimately, which is the best credit card? There's no such thing as the best credit card because it all depends on how much money someone spends, whether they can spend money on Amex or Visa or both, and where they want to go. Once you have all those bits of information, then you can start thinking about, what's the best credit card for your situation? So that everyone's saying, what's the best credit card? And I always think, well, that's not asking what's the best car for me. It's like, well, I don't even know how many passengers. So then you have to fine tune that.
Yeah, okay. I've never looked at credit cards this way. And as you can probably imagine, we've got a lot of investors here, and we have people who are looking to maximize their serviceability and all of that. And we're in the, I'd say, in the era where actually credit cards have a really bad name, right? Because everyone sort of thinks it's going to affect my serviceability. Is there any way to, for want of a better word, get around it? Because I know a lot of people pay off their credit cards monthly. Right. So does it adversely impact their serviceability as well? And again, get advice from your mortgage broker and your finance professional about this. But I'm interested to find out, are there other options? Are there things that we're not aware of?
There are these things called charge cards that Amex issues, and what they are is so like a traditional credit card, they give you a credit limit. It might be $30,000, for example, and that means that you can borrow up to $30,000. And then at the end of that cycle, if you don't pay it back, they'll continue to lend you the $30,000 or your credit or whatever your credit limit is, but they charge you interest. So that's how credit cards sort of make money. But what charge cards do is you might have a credit limit well, they say there's no credit limit, but there is a bit of a limit, and you can only use it for that month. And when a bill comes, you have to pay the entire balance off. You can't carry a loan going forward. So therefore, there's no interest charge. So in the event that you don't pay off, they'll start charging you fees. And if you can't continue to pay it off, then they'll actually won't lend to you anymore, because it's not a lending facility, it's a charge card. So for charge cards, from my experience, and I guess that's just where everyone's financial circumstances are a little bit different to check, is sometimes charge cards, because you don't actually have a credit limit, there's nothing to impact on your serviceability, because you have to pay that statement balance off in full. So you can't borrow money. I guess maybe just to cover the reason why credit cards impact on your sort of like loan serviceability, and it doesn't really matter if your history is that you'll pay off every single credit card statement in full every time, is the fact that if you have a $30,000 limit, that means that any time you can draw upon that money for any reason. And the credit card companies generally have a 3% minimum repayment. So even if you use 0% of your credit limit till now, as long as you have the credit limit, you can draw down on that credit limit at any time, that no one can stop you. And then that means that for that $30,000, you got to pay 3% off every month. So that's why banks normally take that off your serviceability.
Yeah.
But if you have a card, then you can spend the money, but you got to pay it off in full, which is a little bit weird, because if you can't pay off in full, what happens? Well, then you start sort of breaching the rules.
Sure. So it's almost like if you treat it sort of like I was going to say a debit card, but not really, because it's not taking a little bit like a debit card, but you're not taking money directly from that account immediately. You get a little bit of time, whether it's 30 days or whatever, to be able to pay,
be
pay that off.
Yeah.
And it's the first time I've actually heard of a charge card, to be honest. Like personally, it's always been credit. So that I'm just wondering if that, obviously, maybe the financial institutions that provide credit cards make more money from credit cards than they do charge cards, if people are paying off the fees or the amount of money. So okay, that's really interesting, because that is one of the things that I know personally. I haven't had a credit card in years, which has been great, but one of the reasons was it impacts my serviceability. But it also, from a spending mindset point of view, you sort of go, "Ooh, unlimited budget," sort of, even though there's a limit, you don't know that the money is there. But I guess again, it comes down to your individual circumstances. If you're someone who's quite an impulsive buyer, but we got to look at this as a business transaction more than anything else. Again, if you're in the business of property, whether you're developing, renovating, you're doing something else that's in the property space, look at how you can leverage your spending to be able to take advantage of the other things that you want in your lifestyle. Flying, for example, a lot of people fly for business, a lot of people are flying for pleasure, obviously, and there is a cost. I like that there is an option that we can be smarter with our spending.
Yeah,
in a sense.
it's a little bit like it's like turning, in the past there's the word alchemy, and back in the medieval times, they tried to turn tin into gold.
Yes.
And freaking fly points is a little bit like that. It's like turning tin into gold, because you got those points for next to nothing, but you swap those points for something that sells for very expensive business class.
Yes.
You're actually getting something from nothing.
Yeah.
So I guess maybe just a little bit on the credit cards. Like why the thing you really want from the cards, because you can't earn points through a debit card. So you can only earn points through a credit card. And the reason why credit cards give you points is because when you use a credit card, there's a merchant fee. Like your merchant, as in like the shop, has to pay a fee to the bank to accept credit cards. So that fee, especially good when the shop pays it. So if the shop pays for the fee, then the credit card company has the money to reward the user, be the credit card holder. And so that's where the points come from, because it gets paid for by that fee. So what users really are leveraging on is the fact that when you spend money, renovating, and you're buying it from a retailer or a shop or a supplier that charges no fee or a low fee, then you're basically getting something for free. But if you pay with cash or EFT, there's no fee to pay for the points. So I thought I'll cover, because that's a common question about, well, where do these points come from?
Yes.
Well, actually, someone's paying for it. The beauty, you win when you're not paying for it. That's when you win.
Yes. Steve, is there something that you can show us to give us a visual idea? So, I know a lot of people are quite visual, like to get an idea of like how many points, where does that get you? How much does that convert into spending money? So, for our audience that's listening in now and watching the replay, while you're going through your projects, and you can look at your projects and your spending and identify which are the ones that you could potentially use a credit card to pay for. And then make a calculation as to, goodness, I'm spending 200K on materials or whichever for renovation, for example, or you're spending 100K on consultants fees, but only 50,000 of that can be paid on a credit card. But then you sort of go, well, all right, well, if I want to be able to go to what's a popular spot, I'm thinking at the moment, Europe. How many points? How many points for a return flight?
So the average is about 300,000 points for a return.
300,000 points. Okay, so then you just got to work out, all right, how many, how much is that spending to get there, and is that maybe 1 year, 2 years?
1 to 1. So it's about so spend $300,000 and you get 300,000 points on average.
Okay. So, have a think about your projects and what you're spending currently, whether it's in you've got business or whatever. There are opportunities here that you can leverage to be able to go, well, a flight to Europe's going to be almost a whole day. What if I didn't have to sit in economy and be cramped up like sardines, but fly with a little bit of luxury, but for almost the price of an economy seat, basically.
That's right. Yeah. Or definitely no more than half the price of buying a business class ticket. So the way I sort of think about using points is you're basically creating a system where you have a permanent discount. So it'd be like every time you walk past Flight Centre, you got this special discount card where every single flight is half price. That's basically the outcome of using points to fly.
And is it still beneficial? Because I've seen as well where people are going, it's actually more expensive to fly direct somewhere. I'm better off breaking up the trip to, for example, Singapore and getting another flight. Are there any benefits in still using those points in those circumstances as well, where you're, breaking up flights?
Yeah. So then that comes down to picking the right program. So for example, if you use your Qantas points to fly to London, for example, and it flies Sydney, Singapore, London, well, if you're using Qantas points, you can't stop over. It lands in Singapore. It might change planes, but you can't leave.
Yes. Okay. Yeah.
But if you use for example, your Singapore points to fly Sydney, Singapore, London, then within that ticket structure, it allows you to have a stopover. So then you can actually then pick 2 separate flights and maybe have 1, 2, 5. Actually, I think you can have like up to a year gap between the flights.
Oh, right.
So
Really?
yeah, so you can sort of stay as sort of long as you want, really,
Yeah.
within the ticket range. Obviously, no one stays
Mm.
for a year, but they might stay
Yes.
for
Yeah.
2 weeks or something.
Yes.
But you pay the same price as if you didn't stop over. So that's when, I guess, it's about picking the right scheme for the right purpose, and then you get all the sort of features and benefits out of that. Another thing about using points is it's got a feature. It's got an element of a fully flexible ticket. So what I mean by that is most people in Australia, when they book a ticket, they just book a discount ticket. So even if you buy business class, you might book a discount business class ticket, because otherwise, if you pay a full fare business class ticket, it won't be $8,000. It'll be more like 13 grand or 15 grand, because to allow for changes, the fully flexible tickets cost more. So most people in Australia buy a discount economy or discount business, but the feature of a discount ticket means that there's no changes, there's no cancellations. So if you book a ticket, say 9 months in advance, and you can't go because of work or construction delays or whatever, you either got to forfeit a ticket or you got to go. The beauty about frequent flyer points is you can book up to 12 months in advance, but say actually 2 days before you got to go, you can't go, you can cancel your points ticket and you get your points intact back. So that means that you can book up to 1 year in advance, but you got 2 days in advance to cancel.
The flexibility.
So that's huge.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Fabulous. Well, I mean, for those, I know when we caught up, there was a really helpful spreadsheet that you went through, and I think anyone that's listening here and is keen to understand its application to their business, that's really worth going through that exercise with you, and understanding, like you said, where they're looking to travel, how they're spending is in their business, what they're spending, how they're spending it, and so forth. Again, I found that really, really eye-opening to begin with. That was number one. And then number two, sort of making me go, okay, it's also shifted my thoughts and my mindset around how I spend as well, and not looking at it as a credit card is the root of all evil, but actually, it enables you to be able to leverage, really, to leverage something that you would otherwise want to do, but probably not do because of the cost.
Yeah. So it's just about thinking of the card as a tool to be used, and understand what the features and benefits of that card, and then consciously choosing what to pay and what not to pay on the card. So it's actually it's the real maths. Well, I guess for me as a past accountant, it's a real spreadsheet, and ultimately it comes down to like 4 parts. One is how much money can you spend? And then how many points will you earn if you pay it through the card? What the transaction fees will be, and then you compare that to how many flights you can get with those points, and then you'll see that there's a 3 or 4 times gain from doing that, because you're basically earning points for a quarter of the value that you can end up using them for. And the golden opportunity comes from people who has the spending power, because most people are not going to be able to spend $500,000 a year, for example, because they don't have a construction project. But because some of your listeners do and watchers do, they can turn $500,000 into $500,000 points, and then use it to fly business class at a quarter to them, or definitely no more than half the price of a normal business class ticket.
Yeah, absolutely. So, just in sort of summary and wrapping up, how does where does your business come in at iFLYflat? What does that do? What are the services that you offer?
Yeah, so we have 2 services. One side is about helping small businesses earn points. So we provide a tailored points guidance session. It's like a 1-hour Zoom session. And in that session, we all just talk about what is the right type of credit card or business credit card for you, what bills you should pay, and we actually go through the spreadsheet to work out how much you spend, how many points you'll earn, at what cost, and what is the value. So then you can really see that every dollar you put in the card, you're actually getting value. So we do that for people who roughly like $1 million plus turnover or so in that era, all the way up to some companies spend $50 million a year on things like that. And then the other part of our service is about using points. So no, it's no fun helping you earn a couple million points a year, but then now what? So we have a flight concierge. It's like a travel agent where we'll find and book your frequent flyer points flights for you, and then we charge a booking fee. So all up is about earning points and using points, and that cycle just repeats. And the outcome is you never have to fly economy again.
Everyone's going, oh my goodness, what is this? What is this? This, this sort of, it's almost like a secret that no one knows. Again, when I sat down to talk to you about it, I just went to our projects and how much we're spending on things, and I went, oh my goodness, I never even thought of it in that way. So for those of you who are really keen to find out if it's applicable to you, if this is something that you need to explore, again, I'll just repeat it, right? Make sure you get your financial advice. Make sure you speak to your finance brokers and your accountants as well. Do all the things that you need to do to see whether it's the right thing for you. No, this is not financial advice in any way, but explore whether this is something that you could take advantage of. And if you want to have a chat, a session with Steve, how best can they find you?
Yeah, so my website, iFLYflat, so IFLY flat.com.au, showing up on the screen. And also I'm always on LinkedIn as well. So follow me on LinkedIn. I'm constantly sharing like 5 or 6 times a day about sort of travel tips and things like that. But really, I guess like what I found works is basically any business that spends at least $250,000 with bills to pay. Bills as in not travel bills. I'm talking about bills as in Bunnings or electricity or payments to the ATO or rent or contractors or timber or tiles. Basically anything that you got to pay money out. There's an opportunity to pay that with a credit card. And then if the fee is right, you're basically scoring lots of points and a low cost. And then we can then turn it into a business class flight that costs next to nothing. And then you sort of get this. And
Steve, if in about a year or two, if you find yourself on a plane full of property developers, you know where they've come from, right? And
yeah, that's right.
that would be amazing. Well, it was definitely fascinating for me to find out what it is that you do, Steve. Thank you so much for sharing your time. And anyone that's here that's keen to find out more about how this might be applicable to you, reach out to Steve, iFLYflat.com.au. Here's his email as well. He is on LinkedIn. He's prolific there, like I said, sharing constantly there. To find out if you've been traveling lately. Also, you might have seen his big smiley face at Sydney and Melbourne Airport. That's the man, also known as the Points Whisperer. So it's been fantastic. Thank you so much, Steve. I know this is actually quite unusual for us to be talking about this sort of topic at the Business of Property, because often it's around property development itself, its application, how to do property development. But I said, we are talking about the business of property, and we need to look at it like business transaction. How do we treat what we're doing and be able to be smarter with how we spend? So I appreciate you being here. Thank you everyone for joining us as well. I keep warm, stay dry, and hopefully we'll be seeing you all flying very, very soon. So Thanks
And
very
yeah,
much.
fly high and fly at the front.
Fly high and fly at the front. Exactly. Awesome. Thank you so much for
Thank
joining
you.
us this week, everyone, at the Business of Property. Make sure you visit and subscribe to our YouTube channel, which is the Business of Property, where you can find all our past episodes. And if you found value in today's show, click in. Oh, thanks, Steve. We got your course and we'll have a session
Oh,
also.
cool.
Awesome.
Okay.
Hit the like button and get notified when a new episode comes out. So till next time, stay dry, stay warm, and we'll see you next time. Take care. Bye-bye.
See you. Thank you.